My husband spent 20 years restoring that car. When I saw the garage empty, my son said, I sold it. Mom wanted a trip to Paris instead. I was heartbroken until the dealer called and said, Ma'am, your husband left something inside. You need to come right now. Can you imagine the gut-wrenching betrayal? My own son, my flesh and blood, sold my dead husband's most cherished possession for a lavish trip with his gold-digging wife. But what they didn't know is that my husband, even from beyond the grave, had laid a trap, a secret that would expose her and save us all. My name is Carol, and this is the story of how my dead husband, Dennis, saved my life and taught my son, Brian, and that woman, Vanessa, a lesson they will never forget. That morning, the open garage door hit me like a physical blow. I was standing in my kitchen, coffee forgotten in my hand, staring through the window above the sink. The door rolled up, revealing nothing but a dark, empty space. Dennis never, ever left that door open overnight. Not once in our 43 years of marriage. But Dennis was gone now, 8 months in the ground. I set my coffee down, walked to the back door, and stepped out. The spring air was warm for April, the kind of morning Dennis would have already been out there, rag in hand, hunched over his car. My grass needed mowing, the concrete was cold under my slippers, but I barely noticed. My eyes were fixed on the oil stain in the center of the garage floor, a dark, familiar mark from 20 years of the same car sitting in the same spot. But now, that spot was utterly, devastatingly empty. My chest went tight. I leaned against the door frame, trying to breathe, using the techniques I'd taught patients in the ICU for decades, in through the nose, out through the mouth. But I couldn't think past that gaping, empty space. I walked to his workbench, picking up his journal. The last entry, dated 3 weeks before he died, his handwriting tired, looser than usual, almost done. 20 years on this beauty. Can't wait to teach Carol to drive her properly. Our retirement road trip starts next summer. I closed the journal, placing it back exactly where it had been. The garage still smelled like him, motor oil, old leather, that orange hand soap he used. I could almost hear the classic rock he'd play on his old radio, singing along when he thought I wasn't listening. Then, a car engine growled on Oakwood Drive. Brian's black BMW, a status symbol he'd bragged about at Christmas, pulled into my driveway. My 38-year-old son climbed out, his shoulders hunched, hands shoved in his pockets, the telltale signs he knew he'd done something wrong. And then, she stepped out. Vanessa. Always perfect, always poised. Dark, smooth hair, designer sunglasses, clothes that probably cost more than my weekly groceries. She stood beside the car, looking at me, and even through those dark lenses, I could feel her watching. Brian walked towards me, stopping at the edge of the driveway. Mom. Where's the car, Brian? I cut him off. His jaw tightened. That's what I need to talk about. Where is it? I sold it. The words hit me, but they didn't make sense at first. Like he'd spoken in a foreign language, and my brain was struggling to translate. You what? I sold it. Yesterday. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I needed the money. Vanessa's been planning this Paris trip for months. It's important for her business connections. I couldn't let her down. The tightness in my chest spread, my hands shaking. I crossed my arms. That was your father's car. It was just sitting there. His voice went defensive, harder. Dad's gone, Mom. You don't even drive it. It was his. Past tense. He finally looked at me, his eyes red-rimmed and tired. I got a good price for it, too. $15,000. That's fair for a car that old. $15,000. For a car Dennis had spent every weekend on for 20 years, restoring it piece by piece. For a car he'd promised would stay in the family. I wanted to yell, to shake him until he understood the magnitude of what he'd done. But 43 years in the ICU had taught me to keep my voice steady, even when everything inside was breaking. When did you take it? Yesterday afternoon. You were at the store. He still had his old key, from before he moved out, before he met her. Dennis always left the garage unlocked, saying he wanted quick access if an idea struck him. You should have asked me. Would you have said yes? No, I wouldn't have. Vanessa glided up then, like she owned the driveway, the yard, the entire street. She placed a possessive hand on Brian's arm, her nails red and perfect. "Carol, we're not discussing this. It's done. The car is sold. We leave for Paris tomorrow." I looked at her, truly looked at her. She'd been married to my son for 2 years, and I still knew nothing real about her. "This is between me and my son. I'm his wife. What's between you and him is between all of us." Her voice was unervingly pleasant, reasonable, as if explaining a simple concept to someone slow. Brian needed that money. The car was sitting unused. It made sense to sell it. It was his father's. "His father is dead," she said, flat, matter of fact. "And Brian is trying to build a life. We both are. Surely you understand that." I didn't trust myself to speak. Brian wouldn't meet my eyes. Vanessa's hand remained on his arm. "We'll send you photos from Paris," Vanessa chirped, a smile that never reached her eyes. "You'd love it there. The architecture, the museums. Very romantic." The casual cruelty of it, as if she didn't know the pain she was inflicting. Or perhaps she did. Brian shifted. "We should go. Still need to pack." "Yes." Vanessa tugged his arm gently. "We have an early flight." They walked back to the BMW. Brian glanced back once, just once, saw me standing in Dennis's garage, arms crossed, slippers on. Then he got in. Vanessa's window rolled down. "Take care of yourself, Carol. We'll see you when we get back." The BMW backed out, then turned the corner. I watched until it was gone. Then I was alone. I went back into the garage, standing on the oil stain. The silence was different now, emptier. The morning sun lit up dust motes dancing in the air. I picked up Dennis's journal again, reading his words about teaching me to drive, our road trip, 20 years of work finally finished. Everything was here, his tools, his workbench, his radio, the smell of him in every corner, everything but the car. The empty space where the Shelby should have been looked like a wound. I held the journal against my chest, and the tears came again, deep sobs that shook my whole body. The phone rang at 7 a.m. I'd been awake since 4, sitting at the kitchen table, reading Dennis's meticulous entries about replacing carburetors. The phone kept ringing, an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Hello, Mrs. Bennett?" A man's voice, rough, like he'd been crying. "This is Tom Graves from Graves Classic Auto. I have your husband's car." My brain scrambled. "What?" "The Shelby. Your son brought it in Wednesday. I need you to come to the dealership. Please, right now if you can. There's something Dennis wanted you to know. Something he hid before he died." "I don't understand." "Dennis was my friend. A good friend." His voice cracked. "I was at his funeral. I should have spoken to you then, but I couldn't. I'm sorry. Please, Mrs. Bennett, can you come?" I remembered him vaguely now, a gray-haired man. In a dark suit at the back of the funeral home, leaving before I could greet anyone. He gave me the address. I'd be there in 30 minutes. The industrial area was all concrete and metal. I found Graves' Classic Auto at the end of a long street, rows of gleaming vintage cars behind a chain-link fence. Tom was waiting, gray-haired, maybe 65, his eyes red. "Mrs. Bennett, thank you for coming." His grip was firm, but his hand shook. "Your husband saved my life 25 years ago." He looked at the ground, took a breath. "I needed a business loan. Had a dream of opening this place. No bank would touch me. Bad credit, no collateral, just a dream and a lot of nerve." He looked up. "Dennis co-signed for me. Risked his own credit and savings for a stranger." He paused. "I paid back every penny, but the debt went deeper than money." "He never told you, did he?" "No," I whispered. "He wouldn't have." That's who Dennis was. Tom wiped his eyes. "This dealership exists because of him. I've been successful, built a good life, all because your husband believed in me when no one else did." He sighed. "When your son brought that Shelby in Wednesday, I knew it the second I saw it. Dennis talked about that car every time we ran into each other. Car shows, auctions, he'd show me pictures, tell me about the progress. He was so proud of it." Tom's voice went rough. "Brian said he sold it. To me." Tom looked sick. "Your son had no idea what he was selling." I asked him if he knew the value. He said $15,000 sounded fair. My stomach dropped. I slumped onto the curb. What's it really worth? Tom met my eyes. Around $180,000. It's a documented 1967 Shelby GT500, one of 2,048 ever made. Dennis restored it to museum quality. The number didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. $180,000? Yes, ma'am. Brian sold it for 15? Yes. I just sat there, Tom beside me, neither of us talking for a long minute. I bought it from him, Tom finally said. Paid him the $15,000 because he was desperate. Said something about a Paris trip with his wife. But Mrs. Bennett, that car was never mine to keep. Why are you telling me this? Because Dennis made me promise. 2 years ago. Tom stood, offered me a hand. Come inside. There's something you need to see. He led me through the building to the garage, a huge space with white floors and bright overhead lights. 3 cars sat in a row under covers. Tom stopped at the last one, pulled the cover back, and there it was, the Shelby. Gleaming. Burgundy paint, perfect chrome. I walked towards it slowly, put my hand on the hood. Cool, smooth metal. I could feel Dennis in every line. I opened the driver's door, sat in the leather seat. It smelled like our garage at home. The steering wheel was worn where his hands had gripped it. Tom leaned against the door frame. 2 years ago, Dennis asked me to help him install something. A hidden compartment. I looked up. Why? He said if anything ever happened to him, I needed to make sure you knew about it. Made me swear. Tom gestured to the dashboard, behind the radio. I didn't look inside. He said, this was for you and only you. My heart pounded. Tom showed me how to release the panel. Press here. Pull there. The radio face came away, revealing a dark, hidden space. Tom stepped back, leaving me alone. I reached in. My hand touched paper. I pulled out a thick, heavy manila folder. Under it, a sealed envelope with my name on the front in Dennis's careful handwriting. And at the bottom, a small wooden box with a key inside. I opened the envelope first. Carol, Dennis's handwriting filled the page. I needed to protect you from this until I had proof. I've been investigating Vanessa for 18 months. She's not who she says she is. Her real name is Vanessa Cortland. She's done this before, twice that I've found so far. In this folder is everything I've gathered. Photos, documents, contact information for her previous victims. Their stories are the same. She targets men with aging parents and family assets. She's going to target our house, Carol. That's her pattern. She'll convince Brian that you're declining, that you need care, that the house should be sold. Then she'll disappear with the money. My hand shook. I confronted her once, carefully watching her reaction. She's very good at what she does. Brian doesn't see it. He won't believe me without ironclad proof, and I don't have it yet. The key in this box is for our safe deposit box at First National. Box 447. Inside are stock certificates I bought in 1994 as a favor to a patient. Check the current value. You're taken care of financially. Tom knows to call you if anything happens to this car. He's a good man. Trust him. Protect yourself. Protect our son. He's a victim in this, too. I love you. I'm still protecting you, Dennis. I read it twice, hands trembling. Dennis knew. He spent 18 months investigating her, died before he could finish. I opened the manila folder. Photos. Vanessa at a wedding with an older man. Another wedding, another man. Marriage certificates. Vanessa Cortland married Stanley Wright, Phoenix, Arizona, June 2019. Vanessa Cortland married George Murphy, Tampa, Florida, March 2021. Newspaper clippings. Local man reports elderly mother's life savings stolen by daughter-in-law. Another, family business sold in suspected fraud case. Pages of Dennis's notes. Vanessa's questions about our house, my health, our assets, with dates and times. At the back, contact information. Stanley Wright, Phoenix, George Murphy, Tampa. Dennis's final note. Need more concrete proof before telling Brian. He won't believe me otherwise. She's too skilled. If you're reading this and I'm gone, please finish what I started. Protect our son. I closed the folder, holding it against my chest. 8 months of thinking I knew everything about our life. 8 months of missing him, grieving him. He'd carried this alone. Tears came then, not quiet ones, but deep sobs that shook my whole body. I sat in Dennis's car, holding his investigation file, and cried for everything he'd tried to do. Tom came back after a few minutes, stood in the doorway, saying nothing. Just waiting. I wiped my face, got out of the car. He was protecting me, even after he died. Tom nodded. That's who Dennis was. I need to call these men. Stanley and George. I need to know what happened to them. You can use my office. Take all the time you need. I looked at the Shelby, the car Dennis spent 20 years building, the secret compartment he'd installed with Tom, the investigation he'd left for me to finish. She's not going to get away with this. No, Tom said. She's not. Stanley Wright answered on the third ring. His voice sounded tired, like he'd been expecting this call for years. My hands shook as I dialed. Hello, Mr. Wright. My name is Carol Bennett. I'm calling because my son is married to a woman named Vanessa Cortland. A long silence. Then a heavy sigh. I wondered when this call would come. Can you tell me what happened? Stanley, 58, told his story slowly, each word careful. He met Vanessa in 2019. His wife had died 3 years before. He was lonely. Vanessa was charming, attentive. They married 6 months later. His mother had concerns, said something felt off. Stanley dismissed it. After the wedding, Vanessa started with small comments. Your mother seems to be slowing down. Is that normal? I'm worried about her driving. Over months, she built a case that his mother wasn't safe. Then she found a memory care facility, $20,000 a month. The only way to afford it was to sell his mother's house. Stanley convinced his mother it was for her safety. Sold the house she'd lived in for 42 years for $280,000. The money went into a joint account with Vanessa. 2 weeks later, Vanessa disappeared, cleaned out the account. His mother died 6 months later. She kept asking when she could go home. Stanley's voice cracked. But there was no home anymore and no money to get her one. My mom was fine, Mrs. Bennett. A little forgetful, but fine. She didn't need that place. She needed her home. He paused. Whatever Vanessa is telling your son about you, don't believe it. Document everything. She'll start small, then she'll escalate. Thank you for telling me. Stop her, Stanley said. Please don't let her do to another family what she did to mine. I hung up, sat there. Tom brought me water. I drank it, then dialed the second number. George Murphy answered immediately. Vanessa Cortland? Yeah, I've been waiting for someone to call. George, 61, met Vanessa at his father's funeral in early 2021. She understood grief, said she'd lost someone too. They married 8 months later. His father had owned an auto repair shop for 40 years. George inherited it, but Vanessa suggested selling. It's too much stress. We'll take the money, travel, heal together. It made sense at the time. He sold the shop for $195,000. Money went into a joint account. 3 days after the check cleared, Vanessa was gone, completely vanished. George tracked her to Costa Rica, but the money was laundered, impossible to recover. She targets men with aging parents and family assets, George said. That's her specialty. She researches them first, knows everything. He paused. Does your son have access to your house? Your finances? Not yet. But she's been setting the stage. Then you have time. Stop her before she gets him to sign anything. After I hung up, Tom and I sat in silence. Dennis suspected all of this, Tom finally said. He came to me 6 months before he died, asked me to help him. Said he had a buddy, a private investigator, Peter Coleman. They were working together. Why didn't Dennis tell me? He said he needed ironclad proof. Said Brian was so in love, he'd never believe it otherwise. Tom pulled out a business card. Peter's been waiting. Call him. First, I had to go to the bank. The safe deposit box. The key fit perfectly. Inside was a single envelope. Stock certificates. A letter from Dennis. Carol, I bought this stock as a favor to a patient in '94. His son was starting a tech company and needed investors. I gave him $5,000, never expecting anything. Found them last month. Looked up the company and nearly fell over. This is worth more than we ever saved. This is for you. For our future, for security. If you're reading this, something happened to me. Sell these when you're ready. Live well, travel. Stay independent. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. You're taken care of. Dennis. I took the certificates to the bank manager. Her eyes widened. Mrs. Bennett, Techor Solutions went public last year. These shares are currently valued at approximately $342,000. I just sat down. Dennis left me financial security I never knew existed. I had resources now. Power. Options. I could fight Vanessa on equal footing. Saturday morning, I met Peter Coleman at a coffee shop. Tom had called him. Peter, 55, graying, a former detective, had folders with him. Dennis was my friend. When I heard about his death, I wondered if Vanessa would make her move. You kept investigating? Dennis made me promise not to contact you directly unless Vanessa acted against you. He didn't want to alarm you with unproven suspicions. But I kept watching. Peter showed me printouts. Vanessa active on caregiver forums under a fake name, asking about convincing elderly people they need help, about memory care costs. Property browsing history, Costa Rica real estate. Financial investigation, credit cards in Brian's name, 3 cards, $32,000 total debt, charges for designer clothes, luxury hotels in Paris. Brian's salary as an office manager is $65,000 a year, Peter said. Not enough to support this lifestyle. She's living on borrowed money. Money he doesn't even know he owes yet. Peter laid out a projected timeline. Phase 1, Paris trip, build the dream. Make Brian feel inadequate. Phase 2, next 2 or 3 months, she'll start concerns about you, suggest you're declining. Phase 3, 4 to 6 months, build the case for assisted living. Phase 4, 6 to 8 months, convince Brian to sell your house. Your house is paid off, worth $320,000. Exactly. Her total take would be over $350,000. Peter closed the folder. She's in setup phase now. When they get back from Paris, she'll start the campaign in earnest. Can the police stop her? Not yet. She hasn't committed a crime in the state. Until she actually takes money or commits fraud here, police can't act. So we build the case now. Document everything. When she makes her move, we're ready. Peter leaned forward. And Brian has to see the truth himself. If you just tell him, she'll convince him you're paranoid. He has to discover it. I understood. Brian wouldn't believe me without proof he found himself. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table, making a list. 2 months ago, Brian asking where I kept the house deed. 6 weeks ago, Vanessa taking photos of every room. 1 month ago, Brian asking if I'd forgotten about lunch plans we never made. 3 weeks ago, Vanessa commenting how tired I seemed. 2 weeks ago, a brochure for Sunset Hills Senior Living falling from Vanessa's purse. The pattern was there, building for months. Vanessa was creating a narrative that I was declining, preparing Brian to believe his mother needed help. I thought about the stock certificates, why Dennis kept them in the bank, but hid the investigation file in the car. The answer was obvious. The bank was fireproof, secure. But the car was Dennis's private space. Vanessa never went in the garage, never showed interest in his tools or his work. She stayed in the house. The car was where Dennis could hide something he didn't want her to find. He thought of everything. I closed my notebook. Outside, the sun was setting. Spring evening, warm and quiet. Dennis protected me in every way possible. Left me money. Left me evidence. Left me people who would help. Now I had to protect Brian. They came back from Paris on a Tuesday, both tanned. Brian looked tired despite the vacation, stress lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. I'd invited them for dinner, played the part perfectly. Made pot roast, Dennis's favorite, Brian's childhood favorite too. Vanessa, in clothes I'd never seen before, silk blouse, designer jeans, expensive bag. I hugged Brian at the door. He held on a second longer than usual. Vanessa's hug was quick, performative. At the kitchen table, The same table where I'd raised Brian. The same chairs Dennis refinished 20 years ago. Vanessa controlled the conversation. Paris was beautiful. The hotel in Le Marais stunning. She painted a picture of the life they deserved. It was wonderful, Vanessa said, but it made me realize how much we're missing out on. Brian works so hard, and we have so little to show for it. She looked at me when she said it, the meaning clear. I kept my face neutral, past the potatoes. Brian jumped in, Mom, you should think about traveling, too, seeing things. Maybe someday. Vanessa leaned forward. Carol, this house is really too big for one person. Have you thought about downsizing? Maybe something more manageable. There it was. The first direct move. I'm managing fine. This is my home. Of course. Vanessa's smile was pleasant, reasonable. We just care about your safety. The stairs, the yard work. It's a lot for someone your age. Brian nodded along. We worry about you here alone, Mom. He said we, not I. Vanessa's words coming out of his mouth. I appreciate the concern, but I'm fine. Vanessa let it drop, but I saw the calculation in her eyes. Seeds planted. She'd push harder next time. After dinner, we moved to the living room for coffee and apple pie. Vanessa excused herself. Bathroom. Down the hall. She was gone 10 minutes. I waited 5, then excused myself. Found her upstairs, near Dennis's old office. The bathroom door was open empty. She jumped when she saw me. Oh, I got turned around. This house has so many rooms. The bathroom is downstairs, where it's always been. She laughed, touched my arm. Of course, silly me. Too much wine with dinner. I led her back downstairs, said nothing more. They left an hour later. Vanessa all smiles. Take care of yourself, Carol. We'll visit again soon. Brian hugged me. Goodbye. Love you, Mom. I watched them drive away, then went straight to my notebook, writing down every detail while it was fresh. Wednesday morning, I called Brian. I need to talk to you about something. Can you come by? Just you. What's it about? Your father. Something I found in his things. Silence. Vanessa and I don't keep secrets, Mom. This is between you and me. Please, Brian. Long pause. Okay. This afternoon. I have to tell Vanessa where I'm going. That's fine. He arrived at 3 alone, but he looked nervous. I had coffee ready, Dennis's investigation file on the kitchen table. Brian saw it. His shoulders went tight. Mom, if this is about the car again. Sit down, please. He sat, arms crossed, defensive before I'd even started. I took a breath, used my ICU nurse voice, calm, authoritative, factual. Before I show you anything, I need you to listen. Really listen. Can you do that? This feels like an ambush. It's protection. I showed him Dennis's letter first, put it in his hands. Brian read it, color draining from his face. Dad was investigating Vanessa for 18 months before he died. His reaction was instant. Anger, denial. Dad never liked her. He was paranoid about everything. This is ridiculous. I stayed calm. Look at the evidence. I spread the photos on the table. Vanessa at 2 different weddings with 2 different men. The marriage certificates. Brian stared at them. This could be anyone. Someone with the same name. Call them. Ask them about their wives. I handed him the paper, phone numbers written in Dennis's careful handwriting. They're not random. They were married to your wife before you. Brian stood, pacing. This is insane. Vanessa wouldn't. She loves me. Then prove me wrong. Call them. Prove your father wrong. He grabbed the paper, crumpled it in his fist. I'm not doing this. He headed for the door. Brian, please. He turned. Why are you doing this? Can't you just let me be happy? My voice broke. Because your father died trying to protect you. And I'm not going to let his last months be for nothing. Brian slammed the door behind him. I watched him drive away. I didn't know if he'd call those numbers or go straight to Vanessa. Either way, the choice was his now. The waiting was the worst part. I sat at the kitchen table, couldn't eat, couldn't focus. Peter called to check in. How did it go? He was angry. I don't know what he'll do. Give him time. The truth has to sink in. But time felt like it was running out. At midnight, the phone rang. Brian's name on the screen. Brian? His voice was wrecked raw. I called them Mom. I called them both. He was crying. What did they say? Everything. Stanley's mother. George's father's shop. It's the same. Exactly the same story. My heart broke for him. I'm so sorry. I went home after I left your house. I was so angry. His voice shook. But I kept thinking about Dad, about those marriage certificates. So I decided to test her. Just ask simple questions. I asked where she grew up, what her maiden name was. Tell me about your family. He took a shaky breath. Her answers were different. Not just a little different, completely different from things she told me before. Different town, different college, different everything. What did you do? I pushed. Asked about the credit cards Peter found. The ones in my name I didn't know about. Brian's voice went flat. Her whole face changed, Mom, like a mask came off. She said they were business investments. I wouldn't understand. So I asked what business, asked her to show me. She said she didn't have to prove anything to me, that I should trust my wife. I kept pushing. Said I wanted to see the statements. They're in my name. He swallowed. She packed a bag right then. No more pretending. Said I was weak. Said I was just like what Dad said. Just like all of them. His voice broke. She walked out. Just got in her car and left. I've been calling her phone. She won't answer. Stay there. I'm calling Peter Coleman. I hung up, dialed Peter immediately. He answered on the first ring. I'm already tracking her through the credit cards. She checked into the airport Marriott an hour ago. She's leaving. Made multiple cash withdrawals over the last 2 hours, got about $12,000 total. And she just booked a flight. He paused. Mexico City, 6 a.m. departure. One way. My stomach dropped. She's running. Yes, but I found something else. Vanessa Cortland is a stolen identity. The real Vanessa Cortland died in a car accident in 2018. This woman's real name is Linda Marsh. She's wanted for fraud in 2 other states under different names. Can the police stop her? I've been in contact with detectives in Arizona and Florida. They'll issue a warrant. If we move now, we can get her at the airport before she boards. What do you need? Brian's cooperation. His statement about the credit card fraud. Can he do that? Yes, I said firmly. I'll make sure of it. At 3 a.m., we met at my house, Peter, Brian, and me. Brian looked destroyed, red-eyed, hadn't slept. He sat at the kitchen table while Peter laid out the situation. Vanessa is leaving on a 6 a.m. flight. Police are ready to arrest her on outstanding warrants, but we need your statement about the forged credit cards. This means it gets public, Peter said. You'll have to testify. Are you ready for that? Brian looked at me. What would Dad do? Your father spent his last months building a case against her. He died before he could finish it. He'd want you to stop her. Not for revenge, so she doesn't do this to someone else. Brian was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Call the police. Let's go to the airport. We got in Peter's car, drove through empty streets. For in the morning, and the city was dark except for streetlights. Brian sat in the back seat, staring at nothing. I reached back, took his hand. He held on tight. The airport was just waking up. Coffee shops opening. Fluorescent lights harsh overhead. Business travelers pulling luggage. We stood behind a column near security. Peter positioned us where we could see but stay back. Police were already there, 2 detectives in plain clothes near the checkpoint. Brian hadn't spoken since we got in the car. I stayed close to him. 5:30. The security line started filling. Then, Vanessa appeared. 2 large suitcases, designer coat, sunglasses despite the early hour. Hair perfect. She looked like someone going on vacation. Calm, confident, phone in one hand, boarding pass in the other. She got in the security line. The detectives moved. Ma'am, we need to speak with you. Vanessa turned, saw them for just a second. Her face changed. Then she smiled. Is there a problem, officers? The detective showed his badge. We have a warrant for your arrest. Linda Marsh. Vanessa's smile froze. I don't know who that is. My name is Vanessa Bennett. Ma'am, please step aside. Vanessa looked around, calculating, saw the other detective blocking the exit. She ran. Dropped her luggage, kicked off her heels, ran in stockings across the polished floor. Airport security caught her before she made it 20 feet, tackled her at the departure board. She fought, kicking, screaming, "Get off me. I haven't done anything." People stopped, watched, phones out. Police handcuffed her right there on the floor, read her rights while she thrashed. A detective opened her abandoned luggage. Inside the first suitcase were clothes, toiletries. Inside the second were stacks of cash, rubber-banded, $48,000, the detective would tell us later. A passport with her photo, but a different name, Linda Brennan. Documents, bank account numbers, an external hard drive. The detective held up the passport. "Want to explain this?" Vanessa spat at him. They lifted her to her feet. She was still fighting when she saw us. Saw Brian standing 30 feet away, me beside him. She went completely still. Then her face transformed. Pure rage. "You!" She lunged toward him. Police held her back. "You did this." Brian flinched. "You're pathetic. Weak. Stupid. Just like the others. You really thought someone like me would want you? You're nothing. Nothing." I stepped in front of Brian. "Not much. Just enough." Vanessa turned on me. "And you, interfering old woman. This was mine. My score. 3 years I spent on this. You should have minded your own business and died already." Her voice echoed through the terminal. People staring, recording. I didn't react. Just stood there, kept my hand on Brian's arm. Police dragged Vanessa away. She was still screaming threats, her voice fading as they took her through the security doors. Then she was gone. Brian stood frozen, shaking. "Let's go home," I said. 2 weeks later, we were at the police station giving formal statements. Detective Ramirez explained what they'd found. Linda Marsh, born in Ohio, started running cons at 20. Vanessa Cortland was a stolen identity. Linda had used it for the last 6 years. 5 previous victims they'd found so far. Charges filed in 3 states, Arizona, Florida, and here. Identity theft, fraud, theft by deception, forgery. The prosecutor expected a plea deal, 12 to 15 years federal prison. Stanley Wright and George Murphy's cases were reopened. Brian's credit card debt was mostly forgiven. 1 month later, Brian showed up at my door with 2 suitcases. "Can I stay here just for a while?" "Of course." He took his old room, the same room from high school, posters still on the walls, football trophies on the shelf. The marriage was annulled. Vanessa married under a stolen identity. Brian started therapy twice a week. Some days he was okay, made breakfast, helped around the house, smiled. Some days he barely spoke, stayed in his room. I didn't push, just kept the space safe, made his favorite foods, left lights on, kept coffee ready. Years as a nurse taught me about healing. It's not linear. It's messy. It takes time. 2 months after the airport, the prosecutor called. Vanessa took the plea deal, 12 years federal prison. I told Brian over dinner. He just nodded. That Saturday, I found him in the garage. He was sitting on Dennis's old work stool, holding the journal, tears running down his face. I stood in the doorway, waited. "I found this on the workbench." His voice was thick. Started reading. He opened to a page from years ago, Dennis's handwriting, taught Brian to change the oil today. He's 12, old enough to learn. His hands are still small, but careful. He listened to every word. So proud of him. Brian's hands shook. Another entry. Brian came by to help with the engine rebuild. We worked all afternoon. Barely talked. Didn't need to. These are the days I'll remember. "I barely remember this," Brian said, working on the car with him. "I was so young." I sat on the workbench beside him. He loved those days. Talked about them all the time. I sold his car. Brian's voice broke. The car he spent 20 years on. For $15,000. For a trip to impress a woman who was planning to destroy our family. You didn't know. I should have known. Dad tried to warn me. Those last few months, he kept asking about Vanessa, about our plans, about money. I thought he was being controlling. He wiped his eyes. Last conversation I had with him. We argued about her. I told him to back off, to let me live my life. He died a week later. I never apologized. My throat was tight. He knew you loved him. Brian shook his head. How could he? I chose her over him, over you, over everything he taught me. I pulled out the letter Dennis had left in the car, the one about needing proof before telling Brian. Read this. Brian took it. Read Dennis's words about not wanting to break his heart without ironclad proof. About loving him. About Brian being a victim, too. He understood. He knew Vanessa was good at what she did. He didn't blame you. Brian broke down completely. Deep sobs that shook his whole body. I held him. All those years being a mother, holding my son through every pain, this one cut the deepest. We sat in the garage for a long time, surrounded by Dennis's tools, his workbench, his radio, the smell of motor oil and old leather. Eventually, Brian's tears stopped. He wiped his face with his sleeve. I wish the car was still here. I'd learn everything about it, the way Dad wanted me to. I didn't say anything, just squeezed his shoulder. He closed the journal carefully, put it back on the workbench exactly where Dennis had left it. We walked back to the house. Evening coming on, spring turning to summer. The air warm and thick. Inside, I made dinner. Brian set the table without being asked. The house felt different. Not empty anymore. Not quite whole yet either, but healing. I paid off Brian's remaining debt the week after Vanessa was sentenced. $5,000, what the fraud claims didn't cover. Wrote the check and didn't mention it again. The stock certificates from Dennis gave me choices I never expected. $342,000, more money than we'd saved in our entire marriage. I thought about what to do with it. Stanley Wright. His mother dying heartbroken. George Murphy. His father's shop gone. I sent them each a check for $10,000. Attached a note for Stanley, for your mother's memory. From someone who understands, Carol Bennett. Similar words for George. For myself, I decided to stay in the house. Maybe travel a little, small trips. Stay independent, like Dennis wanted. 2 months after the airport, on a Saturday morning, I heard an engine rumble outside. Deep, powerful, familiar. I looked out the kitchen window. The Shelby sat in my driveway. Burgundy paint gleaming in the sun. Tom Graves behind the wheel. My chest went tight. Brian was upstairs. I heard his door open, his footsteps on the stairs. He'd heard it, too. We both walked outside, stood on the front porch. Tom got out of the car, smiled when he saw our faces. Bringing her home. Where she belongs. Brian stared at the car, couldn't move, couldn't speak. Tom walked toward us, held out the keys to me. This was never mine, Mrs. Bennett. Dennis built it for you. I tried to find words. Tom, you paid Brian $15,000. Tom shook his head. But this car is worth more than money. Dennis would want you to have it. Want Brian to learn it. That's what matters. Brian's voice came out raw. I sold it. I threw it away. Tom looked at him. You were a victim, too. Your dad knew that. That's why he built the case to protect you. Tom handed me the keys. Dennis told me once that this car was never really his. It was always meant for his family, for the people he loved. He gestured to the garage. You want help backing her in? We opened the garage door together. Tom backed the Shelby into its spot. The same spot it had left months ago. The oil stain on the concrete still there. The engine shut off. Silence settled. Then the garage smelled like it should again. Motor oil. Old leather. Dennis. Tom got out, stood looking at the car for a moment. He'd be proud of what you did, he said to me, stopping her, protecting your son. He looked at Brian. And he'd be proud you came back. That you're healing. Tom left after coffee, hugged us both. Brian and I stood in the garage after he drove away, the Shelby between us. I can't believe it's back, Brian said. Neither can I. He touched the hood, ran his hand over the smooth paint. I don't deserve this. Dennis thought you did. That's enough. 3 months later, on a Sunday morning, we started. Brian brought Dennis's work journal to the garage. I brought coffee. We opened the hood. Stood looking at the engine Dennis had rebuilt piece by piece. I don't know where to start, Brian said. I opened the journal, found the page marked Teaching Brian. Dennis's handwriting clear and careful. Start with the oil, I read. Check it first, every time before you drive her. No, she's ready. Brian found the dipstick, pulled it, checked the level like the journal showed. His hands were steadier now, 3 months of therapy showing. We spent the morning going through the car together, checking fluids, examining filters, testing systems, physical, methodical work, following Dennis's notes step by step. Brian's confidence grew as the hours passed. I saw Dennis in his movements, the careful attention, the gentle touch with tools. By afternoon, Brian was smiling. Really smiling. I forgot how much I love this, he said. Being in the garage, working with my hands. Your father loved these days with you. I remember more now, little things. The way he'd explain everything twice to make sure I understood. The way he'd let me try, even when I made mistakes. He closed the hood carefully. I'm going to take care of this car the way he wanted. We'll take care of it, I said. Together. For months after Tom brought the car back, I decided it was time. Saturday morning, spring turning to summer. I stood in the garage with the keys in my hand. Brian came out. You ready? I think so. We got in. Brian in the passenger seat. Me behind the wheel. The leather seat was cool under me. The steering wheel worn where Dennis's hands had gripped it for 20 years. I adjusted the mirrors, checked everything like the journal taught us, started the engine. The Shelby roared to life. A deep rumble I could feel in my chest. The sound of Dennis's work, his patience, his love. I backed out of the garage carefully. Brian's hand on the door handle, nervous but trusting. We drove down Oakwood Drive, windows down, warm air coming through, the engine purring smooth and powerful. Brian laughed. Dad would lose his mind right now. In the best way. He taught me to drive when I was 17. On a stick-shift Ford. I stalled it 6 times. He never got frustrated. This is easier. We drove with no destination. Through town, past the hospital where I'd worked, past the high school where Brian played football. Just driving. The Shelby responded perfectly. 20 years of restoration paying off in every turn, every shift, every mile. After an hour, I headed home, pulled into the driveway, backed the car into the garage. Perfect fit, like it never left. I turned off the engine, sat in the quiet. Dad would be so proud of you, Brian said. Of us, I corrected. That evening, I made dinner. Brian came down and helped with the vegetables, chopping them the way Dennis used to. The house was quiet, but not empty. The garage full again. Dennis's tools on their pegboard. His journal on the workbench. The Shelby in its place. I looked out the window at the garage, thought about Dennis's letter. I am still protecting you. He was. The investigation he built. The stocks he'd left. Tom keeping his promise. Dennis loved me enough to prepare for everything. I wasn't alone. Never was, never would be.